Have you ever wished for more flexibility in how you play Dwarf Fort? I've got the answer for you. DF hack. During my escapades on YouTube making Dwarf Fortress content, this question has come up a little bit and I wanted to kind of show in my own way how to use it to enhance your DF experience. But bear in mind, I'll keep this really loose, and if anything goes wrong, we'll fix it together. You can grab DF Hack on Steam, and it's not a mandatory download, but does in fact solve a lot of quality of life issues, fixes bugs you might encounter, and overall make the vanilla DF experience less janky. So once you install it, you'll see the DF Hack logo in the top left, with a quick start guide that'll basically tell you how to use the program. But you aren't reading that, that's why you clicked this video. If you just take away one thing from this video, it's to look for the control panel. This is a super useful UI that enables you to toggle on and off most frequently used resources. Of course, you're not going to know what you're looking at right now, but once we start a fortress, it'll become way more apparent. Regardless, we'll keep it simple for now and just forget this panel exists and create a new world. Now, as we're watching all the world history be rendered in, you'll see with DF Hack, you've access to the rename command. Rename can also be used in the DF Hack console to just rename anything you want. But right now we'll be using it to rename the world. I like the name The Stupid Accident, so we'll stick with that. Also, very cute how a goblin is trying to convince everyone that goblins aren't so bad after all. We'll keep this test world and get stuck in. Once we're in fortress mode, there's a couple things you're able to do on the map screen you might not be aware of. Selecting the DF Hack logo in the bottom of the screen, you'll be able to reveal the GUI launcher, which has a massive list of all the commands you can run, some of which basically do the same thing as each other, so don't be too intimidated. First up, Start Dwarf can allow you to choose how many colonists you want to start with. Be that just one or maybe like 1,000. Not that the game could even handle that many. We'll do 5, just for proof of concept, I guess. You can also pick Hermit too, if you want to have no migrants, and just one dwarf, and no fun. You can also reveal hidden sites, if you don't really care much for spoilers. It'll reveal all the weird crypts and lairs and stuff an adventurer might find across the world. Say you want to embark as a different civ, but you don't want to install a mod to make it more viable. Embark Anyone will allow you to pick the other races. But obviously, because you're not actually meant to be able to play as these guys, they don't really operate as well, or are as developed as the dwarves. You can pick dead dwarven civs too, so maybe you'd want to revive a colony for RP purposes. Because kobolds are on the list, we'll pick them. They're like the least developed race I could possibly pick. We'll see what happens. I found a little spot here that's home to a human castle. Now, usually you can't park the wagon here, but fortunately with the Embark Anywhere tool, you can. You'll get a little pop-up UI telling you good luck, basically. I'll warn you as well, DF Hack enables tons of things you shouldn't be able to do, and I advise you, use it lightly rather than how heavy-handed I'm going right now. You might end up crashing or being unable to play a save properly due to going too wild with customization. Nothing too f***ed though, like nothing is going to make you need to reinstall DF or anything tragic. You can see the 5 kobolds I selected from earlier, rather than the default 7. You'll also see how the limitations of this civ mean the available items are sparse, but if you did want to add more stuff, Points tool allows you to assign further points, if you really wanted to have an easier time. We embark, and can see the pre-generated human castle on map, and also a ton of hostile humans wondering what the f we're doing here. A problem we're already facing with the vanilla kobolds is they're apparently a butcherable pet class of people. Also, they're too small to do a lot of tasks like mining or woodcutting. Also, I can't imagine us getting a caravan from their capital, as we're a dead civilization. Now we're actually in fortress mode. You'll notice that when I hover a kobold, I can see their current happiness, name, and job. This is because of the Spectate feature, which is pretty customizable. You can make it so information is always following the character, or if you want it to only appear on hover, which is what I prefer for instant info. If you love having text on screen at all times, you can instead have it perma-following the character with whatever info you might want. Looks a bit much though, if you ask me. You can also use spectate mode to follow random characters, swapping around perspectives to follow quote-unquote the action. I don't really use it, to be honest. Now we've a load of apparent hostiles on the map, the castle humans. We'll convert them to our side with the Makeown command. This Mr. Sheen-looking lady will now be mystically transformed into a normal serf. She'll now go out to the caravan as an honorary kobold and citizen. We can also teleport them around with the GUI teleport command. This is super useful if a character is particularly disobedient. Don't use just teleport though, unless you want to start writing out IDs and stuff. Ew. Default hotkey for this is Control-T. Just make sure you don't teleport them into the air and break their legs or anything. But you wouldn't do something like that now, would you? So now we've indoctrinated all the humans to be our citizens, but what if I want a dwarf? Sandbox will enable you to spawn in any creature or any item. If you've tried out the object testing arena on the main menu, you'll recognize this UI. We can make a dwarf, assign skills, give him items like the heaviest clothes known to dwarf kind, and spawn him in. I love how different they all look. I feel like each random guy has so much character. I accidentally kept them hostile and they beat a kobold to death. We'll use Makeown to make them allies and members of our group, rather than having them kill all our fellas. We can actually resurrect them entirely with the full heal tool. Full heal and R to resurrect a corpse as though nothing ever happened. You can also use full heal to regrow any missing limbs on unfortunate characters, but I kind of feel like this takes away a lot of the fun factor. Lil bro now wondering what the hell happened. And because it's getting confusing with the amount of characters knocking around, we can use commands like Autonick to automatically nickname all characters from a list of random ones in the dfhack config file. Now we have miners we'll dig down, but in the spirit of a tutorial, I'll do this with the design tool, drawing a perfect oval to dig down with. As you can see, design tool has lots of options. I only really ever use it to make circles though. Once you're happy, you can commit it to the map. We don't actually have picks or anything though, so the gang can't dig this out. You've got a few options for that, but rather than use create item, which is archaic and requires you to know item IDs, you can just use the sandbox from earlier to create an item. You can do whatever you want, but if you want the best result, try to stick with things that can actually exist in game. But I'm limit testing, so 100 rubber picks, please. This feels illegal, but there is a sprite for it, which is wild. We'll plan to destroy rock with wood. I need to actually make these guys into miners though, so I'll assign mining in the labors and... the game crashed. Now we're in the part of the tutorial where I teach you how to retreat into your mined fortress, your happy place, where you remain unaffected by dwarf fortress crashing due to unknown reasons, totally outside of our control. This will not register on an emotional level. You will instead sigh, smile into the black mirror, and load the game back up again. Wipe those tears out of your eyes. We'll pick kobolds again, and I'll take you through some other stuff you can do in dfhack. This time we've selected an Elven capital as our base, so we're witnessing a ton of elves just sitting in a square tree. Classic elves. After using Makeown on some of the elves, I checked the labor tab to see that fortunately, it's not breaking this time. We'll teleport him out of the tree so he can go against his elven nature a bit. We'll spawn in an axe with Sandbox, then ask him to commit the biggest crime elves could possibly commit. Chopping a tree. Buddy is not happy about this. We can check out his preferences by assign preferences or pref adjust. Again, in dfhack there's usually 2 or 3 ways to do the same thing. So don't worry too much about the massive list of tools, but as you know, I'd rather literally eat my own head than type out all this shit. So let's use a better option, the GMGUI. Looking up GM unit or Game Master, you'll find an amazing UI where you can affect a character's traits on a broader scale, allowing you to edit their personality. So rather than removing all elfy traits entirely, you can maybe make his resolve a bit tougher, so he's not so upset by chopping a tree, and maybe doesn't really care as much. Here you can change the selected character's details. Anything from how ambitious they are, their skills, their feelings and beliefs. You can also change skin, hair and eye color. Not their hairstyle though, weirdly enough. If anyone knows how to do that, please let me know, I'll pin your comment. And if you really wanna, you can change their sexual attraction. Congrats, buddy.
You are gay.
GM Unit Editor should not be confused with the more incomprehensible Game Master Editor, which I do not recommend messing with. Like, this is so convoluted, I feel like it's a fast track back to your desktop. Now, I named our elf The Guy, and he's chopping trees. But we can make him faster. Using Super Dwarf Add, while selected, can make him run at high speed. Which is impressive, but let's make him even faster. Fastwarf with teleport enabled will make all citizens blink around the map to their jobs. He's now operating as an instantaneous Elven depression generator, but we can go even faster. His woodcutting is only novice after all. Using Make Legendary List, we can see a list of skills he can have, and typing Make Legendary Woodcutting will make his woodcutting ability the highest possible stat. You could also do this within GM Unit Editor too, which is way more intuitive. Holy shit, now we're talking. Another useful feature of dfhack is notifications, which is telling us we've not saved. So we'll do that now. In default df, we can't manually save unless we create like a uniquely named saved state. So this quick save is really ideal and reminiscent of more modern RPGs. You can actually adjust the notification settings by clicking the cog in the overlay. I recommend keeping it all the same. Like, don't have wildlife enabled because damn, literally who cares? Anyway, now we cleared a space, there's dirt patches where the trees used to be, so using the Regrass tool, it'll fill those areas back in. But not the similarly looking dirt road area. Maybe it has a different tag, I don't know. So anyway, let's dig out a perfect circle with the design tool. We could create picks and assign the elves to do this, but instead let's use the Dig Now command, instantly digging out any assigned area. With water rushing in from the river, let's assign the wood for trashing by creating a trash pile. This is just normal dwarf fort stuff, by the way. They are struggling to do this with the onrushing water. Even if I re-enable Fast Dwarf, they're getting stranded on the wagon island and aren't able to move everything. We can teleport all items assigned for dumping with the Autodump command. I'll be honest, I don't like their naming conventions, because some things like Auto Butcher and Auto Farm are like super convenient automation commands. But Autodump is just a straight cheat. With a double click, everything has been teleported for me. These guys are still stranded though. Even Fastwarf can't move characters outside their usual pathing. We'll make a bridge of rock using the Tile Types tool. Tile Types is like the ability to paint non-constructed tiles into the game. You can choose the material, or if it's smooth or anything. You can also fill and replace with other types, but remember this can't be a wall or anything man-made, because that's technically a construction. I think it's nice as like a sort of creative mode tool. Maybe if you were using Dwarf Fort as a method of map building, or like making a D&D battle map. You should write that down, that's a good idea. Similar to the tile types, we can play around spawning in liquids. This allows you to place things like water, magma, or even river sources of customizable depth. For example, if you really wanted to, you could create something like a 3-depth pool that will always replenish, creating a Dwarven swimming pool. You can also interact with liquids this way in the normal sense, creating steam and obsidian depending on what liquid you're spaffing about. But I'm just gonna make the quadrants lava, because it looks cool. You get the idea anyway. For some reason, this Buggy our Civ can't brew drinks, so we might be at a dead end with these guys. But this is a DF hack tutorial, not a dead Civ tutorial, so whatever. I was wondering if they just lacked the crafting recipe. With add recipe, all, you can add all recipes to your Civ's crafting expertise. This would allow for characters like dwarves to make things they usually couldn't, like masks, turbans, and whips. Another interesting tool is GUI reveal, which will allow the map to be visible for as long as the UI is on screen. Or if you want the fog permanently lifted, reveal without the GUI will show the entire map. Useful if you don't care for spoilers, and you really don't want to plan into an area that you're not ready for. Also, I imagine if you don't technically find caverns, you won't have any forgotten beasts or ambushes spawning down there yet. I'm gonna dig through the Aquifer down to cavern level 1, using Dig Now from earlier to get it done instantly. But obviously with it being a light aquifer, it's dribbling down into the basement, which isn't ideal. Usually we'd wall these moist rocks off, but instead we'll use GUI Aquifer to remove the property of these rocks entirely. You can modify rocks to become aquifer, light or heavy, or back to normal stone. Speaking of moisture, as we're sort of coming to a close on this test Civ, I want to show you the romance options. A simple one, the tool Gaydar will check a selected unit's sexual preferences. This doesn't matter much, but can be useful if the limited livestock isn't breeding or whatever. We can use the GUI family affairs to play with the long-standing relationships in the game, and make 2 of the elves now married. Unfortunately though, only straight couples can be spouses in Dwarf Fort. However, I've at least made a 3rd elf into both of their lover, so it's like a bisexual throuple. In the family affairs, you can also generate pregnancies, but because I have a wicked sense of humor, the married couple will have a baby. But the lover is the father. That's gonna be a fun conversation in 9 months. I'd love to use Make Monarch to make the lover the king of the Civ, but unfortunately for everyone involved, this Cobalt civilization is buggy as all hell. Not only we can't have royalty, we can't have any admin whatsoever. So, no expedition leader, no military, and no work orders. But regardless of all that, I hope I've taken you through a good chunk of what DF Hack has to offer. That was the more crazy side of the video done and dusted. But now I want to take you through how I personally tend to use it as an extension to my normal gameplay. Here we are in one of my recent fortresses, the Monster Hole. Here I've got a simple trash area set up, using DF Hack to automatically tag any item placed in this stockpile for dumping. It's pretty much just assorted body parts, nervous tissue, rotten meat, and other viscera we don't use. Similarly, I have an area reserved for melting down any fired arrows, which was mentioned a bit in my previous video as my sneaky steel duplication exploit. I'll link it for you, don't worry. There's occasionally useful DF Hack mods on the Steam Workshop. One I use is Dwarven Memorial by Rebooter, which is pretty nice. This allows me to check out their stats after death. Maddox hilariously dreamt about staying alive. That dream was obviously not achieved. Sometimes, well, most of the time to be honest. I CBA to create proper tombs and opt for a massive multiple dwarf crypt. This is done with the burial command. It's just way faster than painstakingly creating each singular tomb by hand. Pay no attention to how shit this stockpile is. I do, however, have a couple quantum stockpiles embedded in the center. For the uninitiated, quantum stockpiling is a way of just throwing raw resources on a spot and allowing it to effectively stack infinitely. This can be done manually by assigning minecart routes, or if you're a lazy boy like me, using DF Hack quantum command. The way this works is you can select an existing stockpile you want to make quantum, and then it'll automatically assign the required minecart and stockpile settings, so you don't need to worry about it. You'll notice a trend with the way I prefer to use DF Hack. I like having tedious stuff automated. Speaking of automated, we can finally look into the control panel. You can easily see here a ton of options that will just add a bit more intellect to your dwarves, allowing them to do stuff without you needing to micro as much. That way you can focus on other things like big builds or weird schemes. When you toggle some of these on, dwarves will automatically dump their shredded clothes that are worn out and make new ones. They'll make sure to keep hold of enough seeds with Seed Watch so you don't ever fully run out. They'll fish until they hit a certain stock, then stop. Stuff like that. If you ever want more details, you can just read up the info with the question mark, but they're really useful. I feel like a lot of these should be in the base game, but whatever. I think the only automations I don't use here is Auto Chop or Nest Box. Auto Chop just angers elves and Nest Box is mad buggy. One that you really need to fine tune by yourself is Auto Butcher. Auto Butcher allows for a steady food supply and makes sure you don't have pastures full of like 100 dogs lagging out the fortress. For example, I got these weird little sperm creatures I've tamed, and I can toggle this to be watched by Auto Butcher or not. You can also define how many you want running around. So, for example, you can make sure you only farm adults rather than offspring. It's amazing though. Definitely use it. Another amazing one is Suspend Manager. This will automatically pause building jobs that would block off other build jobs, making sure things are built in a more intelligent order. I don't know if this is Suspend Manager, but you can also make things higher prio if you really want a dwarf to get to this task first. There's also obviously a ton of bug fixes which can potentially spare you any game-breaking issues down the line. Things that reduce lag, fix dwarves that can't take tasks, shit like that really. Also some useful gameplay stuff depending on the kind of fort you have. For example, Deteriorate will make things deteriorate over time, like surface corpses or whatnot. Also good to enable Immortal Cravings so your Necromancer or Vampire citizens can still enjoy things, rather than just be miserable all the time. Time Stream is good for getting your FPS back up. And tools like Work Now stops Dwarven ADHD. Another tool I tend to use in my playthroughs is I allow idle dwarves of a certain misery rating to do some hobbyist crafting. You can tweak this however you want, but I personally keep it enabled as default because I feel like the dwarves can't easily ask me to do this otherwise. The final thing I'd say I use on the regular is Civilian Alert. I feel like vanilla burrows are janky in the best of times, but Civ Alert makes the dwarves actually act fast and listen to the burrow command pretty much instantly. So let's test it. Let's see how fast citizens respond to the burrow in vanilla. Bro, this fucking sucks. Now, about 5 in-game days and 8 dwarves later, the burrow has been largely ignored by the populace. Cancelling the vanilla burrow request, but then instead announcing a Civ Alert gives us the following result instead. Already, everyone's hauling ass to get to the location I specified. And when I'm being attacked by goblins or werebeasts or anything, this is the kind of response I'm looking for that you just can't get in vanilla. So, I think this is a good endpoint for the video, and basically showcasing the powers of DF Hack as a tool to enhance your Dwarf Fort gameplay. There's bound to be super niche things I've missed or can't easily showcase well, but I hope this was a step in the right direction helping you use this in your future fortresses. There's a shitload of documentation online about stuff, but if you get stuck, the DF community is super nice honestly, and we'll all help you out in either the comments or on Discord or my stream. If you ever do want to yap with me or ask anything, I stream all the time on that evil Jeff Bezos platform. We've also got a community Discord with world generation files, community succession games, and loads more. This is me Civ Alerting you right now, basically. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope this helped, and I'll see you next time. Shout out to the beautiful YouTube members who support my vids. I've also now got a coffee if you're interested in helping this channel grow. Pretty sure like the entire amount goes to me, which would be poggers, rather than cutting it with YouTube and Bezos. But anyway, I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you again real soon. Okay, love you, bye.